Welcome to Millennium Counseling Center's podcast, where each week we go in depth into all things mental health, addiction recovery, and being our healthiest and happiest self. Enjoy. This week's episode will be hosted by one of the many incredible therapists here at the Millennium Counseling Center. Please enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Weeman, and I am a licensed social worker. I recently graduated from my graduate program and was an intern here at Millennium for my second year. And now I'm transitioning to being one of Millennium's primary counselors. And today I am joined by one of our current interns, Amelia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amelia Abernathy, and I am a second-year clinical intern here at Millennium. And today, Lily and I will be having a candid conversation about what it's like to be an intern.
Awesome. Let's get into it.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So, Lily, what was it like for you to choose Millennium as your internship spot?
Yes. So I was drawn to Millennium because of the sports division that they are sort of in the process of really getting off the ground now. But I was a Division I athlete back in the day, and I sort of saw the opening for more than just physical care when it comes to being an athlete, and sort of tuning back into one's mind and sort of really answering the question of how an athlete is feeling without being directly correlated to how they're performing. So with that being said, I sort of was doing some research my second year in my program at University of Chicago and saw Millennium and was really drawn to that division and reached out and then had a pretty extensive sort of like interview process, I guess you can say, sort of reminding myself that it's not just about whether Millennium likes me, but also if I like Millennium. So it needs to be a good fit. So I think that would be one thing that I would suggest for people who are kind of like in this process and navigating it, is always reminding that you also sort of have to check in with yourself and see if the current spot is also like the right fit for you.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that. I mean, not being from this area and being from the South, counseling, A, is not something that's really talked about. And B, when I started looking for my internship site, there were so many. I feel like Chicago is really great about having a lot of different opportunities for people. But there was something about Millennium. I don't know what it was. It was the people and the atmosphere and the kind of community that they create amongst their therapists that really drew me to it. And yeah, you're right. It's a very extensive process here. A lot of intense interviews, applications. But yeah, there was something that was definitely magical about finding a site that not only wanted to have me, but that I felt drawn to and wanted to be at. I think that really shapes your internship experience.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing through asking questions, and I think during this process, asking questions is very important. But as being sort of a counselor who's early on in their career, we talk about this all the time, how important supervision is. So I think that was definitely something that I was like, how often will it be? Like, me and you sort of teamed up and now we do our supervision together, which is great because I'm able to learn from your experiences as well as getting my questions answered. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about supervision and how important that has been in our intern years.
Yeah, I think that when you're an intern, you have that label attached to you, but you're also seeing clients. So there's a ton of imposter syndrome that's going on. This is a career where you have to learn as you go. I don't think that you are ever going to be the kind of person who feels like you know it all, but it's very prominent. That feeling is when you're starting out. And so you sit with your first client and you're asking yourself, am I doing any of this right? And so having a space like supervision where you can go and talk to not only someone who's licensed, someone who's here at the practice, but also a peer who's in the exact same seat as you are, makes it feel so much better. I know with our first semester, we did our supervision individually. And then our second semester, we're brought together to do triad supervision. So kind of bouncing ideas off both the supervisor and the other intern. And it definitely shaped how I enter the space with clients because I felt like I got a more holistic perspective. I don't know about you. I think that it made me a better counselor, but it wasn't always easy.
100%. I think supervision is about going in there and sort of being ready to maybe admit some things that you maybe feel like you're doing wrong, or some spaces that you may, like there's room for improvement. So you kind of also have to go in there with this understanding that it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because you're still learning. And I think our space has been great for that because you're also able to then take a step back and reflect at any things that may be coming up for you. So as you're navigating becoming a counselor and on top of your schoolwork, on top of seeing clients, you also have feelings that may be coming up for you in your own like personal life. You don't really know what a client's going to come in and say.
Yeah.
And you may have a personal reaction to that or things that are coming up for you. So it's also important to use supervision as a space to sort of digest and process what's coming up for you, as well as ask questions. How can I better support this person while I am maybe feeling XYZ to what they're saying?
Yeah. I also think, our supervisor, Devona, does such a great job at, we'll kind of explain what was going on with the client, what we were feeling, what the conversation looked like. And instead of immediately answering what she would have done, she turns to the other intern and says, what would you have done in this situation? And I think that also gives an opportunity for us to learn through each other's experiences. And also, I feel like the whole practice does a really great job of basically hyping each other up and also pointing out faults or flaws where they see that, hey, you didn't necessarily do something wrong, but you could improve in this area. And I think we've gotten to the point where we can do that with each other now. And with both of us staying on board at Millennium, it's created, this continual education and wanting to grow through each other and through the team. And so I think supervision is it's really important. And not as many people have as positive experiences as we do.
Yes, very thankful and grateful for our experience here with supervision for sure. I think another thing that has sort of calmed my nerves early on and sort of allowed that imposter syndrome to sometimes take a back seat is noting and realizing and often talking to the peers at Millennium, and they speak often about their time as an intern. So it's important to remember that everyone once was an intern, and a lot of people here at Millennium, they were interns at Millennium, and their supervisors were people that we know and people that we see on our meetings and all these kind of things. So that was something that was always kind of beneficial and helpful for me to have in the back of my mind if there was any like doubts or that little person on my shoulder, like, what are you doing? I was like, wait, everyone has had to go through this process and started off as an intern. And I think another thing is within this career, we're always learning. So like the label intern, like at the beginning is a little like, ugh.
Yeah.
But it's also like, oh, these people are coming in with new ideas.
Yeah.
They're fresh out of school. They are excited, maybe not burnt out.
Yeah.
Like
they're learning new techniques.
Exactly.
Yeah. They want to be here. And I think, so many people have such fears about seeing an intern. I read a study yesterday that said 196 people were asked if they would see a clinical intern, and only, I think it was like 74 said yes. And the reason behind that, a lot of people said that, that person's only there to get their hours. They're not necessarily there for me. That person is going to leave as soon as they graduate. I mean, it's a lot of valid concerns. They say that person doesn't have experience, but I would argue that, experience is one tool that we have in our toolkit. There's a lot of other things that shape who we are as counselors, and we're surrounded by experienced people who are wanting and offering to give us advice. But let's kind of tackle some of the things that I think people face when they're offered to see an intern.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that maybe like first glance, like, whoa, this person is fresh.
Yeah.
This person is new. I mean, sometimes people are like age-wise, they're going back to like a second career and they're a career changer. So they maybe like have a few more years on us. Us, on the other hand, are a little bit younger, really just kind of going straight from undergrad into our graduate program. So we're also just, in general, may not have as much life experience. So again, these are all very valid concerns. I mean, it's like, what is this little lady going to say to me?
What is she doing?
But again, I think the major, like a thing that I would sort of push back on that is just how excited and like eager more like new and fresh people are to this field. Me and you can talk about this like 24/7. We are like so excited to be here. We're so excited to be at Millennium. We're proud of ourselves that we've gotten to this point. And not to say that our other counselors are not like very like eager and present. I mean, everyone that I talk to here at Millennium absolutely loves what they do. But I think there's just this sort of fresh perspective that is also a pro.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that also too, I don't know how you are in your grad program, but in mine, I'm the youngest there. So it's like youngest there, youngest here. And oftentimes my professor will say something along the lines of like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like even just bringing up social media in some of the classes, because it's not a valid concern for some of the people who are older and they haven't seen it. And this is not me knocking anyone who's older. It's just saying there's benefits to new perspectives. And I also think, along with that freshness and newness and just like a desire to learn and engage, there's something about being a counselor where you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. And you wouldn't do it if you didn't feel drawn or called to do it. And I know, especially here at Millennium, there's kind of this beauty of people like you. I mean, sports, you have that experience. You know what that's like. And you're able to kind of pull from that. And even if you're younger, you know what you're talking about. Same as like 3A, like, oh, some of the people here are recovering addicts and they know what that's like. And I think Millennium does such a great job at hiring people who have experience in what they want to talk about and are passionate about it. And so that newness can be daunting, but it's often fueled by passion and a desire to be here and a desire to be with the clients that they're seeing.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like at times, I mean, as interns or newer clinicians, we know this, it can be kind of hard to build a caseload because of these fears that people are having, these very valid concerns. But with that being said, we're not as overwhelmed. There are fewer cases, sort of like more time to like process, go to supervision, debrief, sort of really sit with what you're feeling after a session. And I think there are benefits to maybe having fewer clients, at least at the beginning, especially.
Yeah, I think that it definitely ensures that the clients that we're seeing are our main priority. And that kind of teaches you to be in this mindset of my clients are a priority. And that's not something I think you ever lose when you start seeing more clients. It's just getting you more engaged with more people.
Again, it's all just a part of the process, I
Yeah,
think.
everyone started out here. I mean, I know it's scary. It's also nice because, especially here, and I know many other places, when you're an intern, you have a lower fee and a lower rate. And so there's this sliding scale aspect that, interns are able to see people who might not necessarily be able to afford counseling. And I think there's a lot of grace to that. And I'm very glad that Millennium offers that as an opportunity for people who need it.
I completely agree. It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to sort of offer services, yes, at like a sort of lower rate because it just helps everyone involved.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
A part of the process again. So as our current intern, what would you sort of, any advice, words of wisdom to anyone beginning this journey? Maybe things that have helped you sort of calm down the imposter syndrome that sort of creeps in every now and then, or
Yeah. I think it's really important to remember in the process that everything that you're feeling, someone else has felt. There's a certain anxiety that comes with sitting with someone and being that aid to them and whatever they're going through. But again, you wouldn't be here if you didn't love doing it. I think really plug in with your supervisor, create a relationship there, create a relationship if there are other interns, get each other's numbers and hang out, step outside of the practice that you're in and get to know each other on a humanistic level. And more than anything, trust yourself. You are learning and you're growing, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with the way that you approach therapy. There is no right way to be a therapist. There's your way to be a therapist. And there are people in the world who are going to need that. I'm very thankful that not all of us are carbon copies of each other that need the exact same thing. We're meant to be different and to desire different things. And to really just root yourself in that ideal that, someone's going to appreciate the way that you do therapy. And it might take a second to figure it out, but it's your way and it's the right way for you.
I think there's something that I wanted to add about our supervision process of having me, you, and then Devona. So 3 people involved. And which is great about Devona not always jumping to what she would do, but then asking the other intern what they would do. One, does that not, it provides time for us, an opportunity for us to learn, but it also very clearly sort of like points out that there are so many routes that you can take, which for me, that has been like a huge thing because I think I can get sort of like wrapped onto this idea of like, there is a right way, but to then like, through supervision, there are 3 very valid ways of how you can show up to that client in that day. So learning that and sort of understanding that and hearing those 3 different ways kind of calms things down for me. It's like, oh, that's how I maybe want to respond. but Amelia may respond this way and Devona may respond that way. And they're all great ways to be and show up with your client. So that is probably something that I would sort of suggest to anyone starting off, and honestly, even people that are still in this field. Another thing I think with me, silence can be very scary. You're sitting in a room or across the Zoom from someone, and you may ask a question, or I don't even know. But there can be some moments of silence where you kind of have to sit with it. And it's something that for me, I've had to learn with time. But there is, I think, some very sort of formative and like fulfilling and moments where you can just sit in silence and you're still doing something with your client. You're holding the space, you're creating a bond, you're creating a connection, you're creating this like authentic human relationship that, I don't know, sometimes we think we need to fill everything with words, but
Yeah. One thing I often tell clients, and I think that is something that's prevalent for interns and counselors and just anyone in this field, is the fact that therapy has become kind of a fad these days. And so it's really cool for people to say that, my therapist said, or like, oh, I have therapy today. And it's kind of like a laughable matter that oftentimes I think people forget that therapy is work. And with therapy goes growing pains. But along growing pains is growth. And it's the idea that you're becoming a better version of yourself. And so I think understanding that you're not there simply for the client. Sometimes the client's there for you in a way of like, you're going to learn and you're going to grow and you're going to be uncomfortable at times, but it's going to teach you how to be a better aid to those who need it.